You are listening to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Beth.
I'm Natalie.
And I'm Harriet.
Rewrite the Rules podcast releases a new episode every Monday, and we're all about helping you achieve a happier and healthier relationship with food and your body.
We're real people with real life experiences, so you can expect us to be keeping it raw and real in each and every episode.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you use, and share the love with a friend that you think will love this podcast.
Now, let's get on to the episode.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. I am here today with a very special guest, Abbie, also known as abs.mfitness on Instagram. Obviously, correct me if I am wrong, but welcome, Abbie, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And that is correct, by the way, as well.
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce that properly. I want people to be able to find you. But I have been following you for a short while now. I obviously found you through Becca, who we had on the podcast a couple of weeks back. You share a business together, you share a podcast together, and we will obviously chat all about that later on. But through listening to your story in particular, I just knew that you were the perfect guest to have on the podcast, because I know so many people are just going to completely be able to relate to you. Obviously, I know you are a listener as well, so this is a bit of a different experience for you. You're on the other end of it. If you don't mind just starting us off, could you please introduce yourself a little bit, and for those who don't know you or haven't sort of heard your story before, maybe just share a little bit of your beginning, and obviously whatever you are comfortable with. There is no pressure, just go for it.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Abbie. I'm very thankful to be on here as well, because as Bethany said, I listened to it, so it is really weird being on the other end. So yeah, I am part of the Food Freedom with Becca team. Becca very kindly took me on as part of her team, I think last August. So I help behind the scenes, and I've had a few clients through that as well. But yes, that's kind of a little side thing. So yeah, I think my journey probably started, I always feel like I've always been on a diet ever since I was little. I don't really remember a time when there wasn't it wasn't that thing surrounding my weight. But I think my disordered eating kind of happened around when I was about 14, 15, and I started competitively rowing and being in a boat and all that stuff, and around other young girls who were, very slim, and weight is quite a big factor into it. I kind of just stopped eating, to be honest. I can remember I would not eat breakfast. I wouldn't eat lunch. I would throw away lunch. My parents would do me a packed lunch for school, and I would throw it away and wouldn't eat it. And I lost so much weight so quickly because I was exercising like 4 or 5 times a week, really high intensity, and just obviously not eating. And luckily at that time, it never really affected me. And I didn't see it as like a disordered eating thing, because I would binge in the evenings because I had no food in me during the day. And yeah, it never really dawned on me that it was a disordered eating thing to go through. But I lost so much weight so quickly. And luckily enough, I think around Christmas, I kind of got myself out of it and back into a more steady state of eating, which is really lucky. And then I think around 17, when I started doing A-levels and I started driving and all this stuff, it kind of started again. I got really depressed with my studies and all that stuff, and I felt like I wasn't doing very well. And I think I turned to food as kind of like a comfort blanket. And it wasn't necessarily that I started off by really restricting myself. I was always really aware of my weight, but it more turned to kind of like a comfort blanket. And then because I'd be eating such large quantities of food, I'd then restrict myself, and I kind of got in that habit, and I didn't really get myself out of it for a fair few years. But I think in that moment, you don't really realize it, because there's not a lot of information out there. Even though social media is such a great tool, it can be such a great tool, lots of people didn't really talk about it that openly. And I especially like binge eating disorder, there's not a lot out there. People just think it's kind of overeating, and they don't see it as such of a big eating disorder thing as maybe like anorexia or something like that, because it's not as visual sometimes. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, to be honest. But yeah, it's been a journey.
No, absolutely. And I definitely completely agree with what you said, in terms of there just wasn't the conversation. And for me personally, I just thought what I was doing was a cheat day, and it was like normal. We were just having like cheat meals, cheat days, cheat weeks. sometimes overeating was accepted because it was disguised as cheat day or whatever, when actually, like you said, you were using it for comfort. And of course, food is delicious and it can be a wonderful comfort, but it's just so important to have other tools sort of within your tool belt. If you're going through anything stressful, of course, it's lovely to treat yourself to a chocolate bar, but that can't be your only coping mechanism, because it's just super duper easy just to become reliant on it and then create this negative sort of relationship with food. So what was your sort of enough is enough moment, the point that you got to and you were just like, I cannot do this anymore, something needs to change?
So I think there was kind of a few earlier on when I was around 17. Like I can remember driving myself to Asda and I would just like buy so much food, and like even stuff that I didn't like. It would be the random combinations of food that I would eat and I'd be like, why am I even doing this? Like food that I didn't even like, I'd be like, I just have to eat it. And it's that, like, I don't know, you're just so out of control. And it was at that point I was like, right, I need to kind of get some help and, you know, sort this out. So I started going to the gym, which is kind of how I got into exercise in the first place. And for a second it started going okay, and I kind of got myself out of it, got a PT who kind of helped a bit. She didn't necessarily understand the binge eating, I don't think, but it kind of helped a little bit because I was combating it with exercise. But then it kind of came back over time, and if anything, the exercising obviously didn't help because I was then over exercising to then eat more. And I think it was about a year ago, it was around Christmas, and I had binged the night before, and so I'd restricted myself all day, and I was meant to be going Christmas shopping with my family, and I was just in the worst mood of my life because I felt so guilty from inside that I'd binged and then restricted. And like I knew that I was doing it to myself. That's the worst part, is that by that point I'd kind of educated myself a bit more and knew what was going on, and it just frustrated the hell out of me that I couldn't control it myself. And yeah, basically I ended up having this really big meltdown in the middle of like a shopping center. And it was that point that I was like, enough is enough. I was like, I can't keep living like this, and just feeling so guilty. And that is kind of when I got into contact with Becca, who was my friend anyway, and she kind of helped me through it. So yeah, it was only about a year ago that I would say I truly started my journey to fixing my relationship.
Do you feel like your sort of relationship with food and your binging and restricting ever impacted things? Like, did you have a lot of maybe shopping occasions that you turned down, or meals out with friends that you were like, you're either not going to go to, or you're going to feel really, really horrendous and try and train all this off tomorrow?
Yeah, so absolutely. I can remember like if there was ever a meal out or anything like that, I wouldn't eat during the day at all, because I was like, I know I'm going to eat so much then. And I didn't want anyone to know either. Like none of my close friends knew, like my sister knew, and that was pretty much it. And it is that, like, it's just the guilt within inside you that I would go to the meals, but then I'd try and not eat, and then I'd binge more when I'd get home because I'd be like, oh my god, I can't, you know, eat as much. Or I'd try and trick people that I was kind of really healthy. I'd go for like a salad option, and then I wouldn't be satisfied, and I'd be like, I've just spent 20 quid on a salad and I don't even enjoy it. But yeah, and like going out at uni was a nightmare because I wouldn't want to drink, because I know that when I'd come back, I'd want to eat everything in sight. And so I would try and not drink as much as well. And yeah, I definitely turned a few friends away growing up because it just...
Especially with being at uni, like, do you think that impacted that experience as well? Because I've had a lot of friends that went to uni and it was just a lot of food out of a can and lots of alcohol and not much else. How did that sort of show, and what behaviors do you think you didn't partake in because of what you were dealing with?
So I think it definitely probably got a bit worse because when I was living at home, obviously there was still people around me at times. So like you could only hide it during like small times, I guess. Whereas when you're at uni and like you're by yourself and it's the first time that you kind of have freedom, like no one's there to stop you. And yeah, I can remember like my friends would go out and do things, and I would just hide in my room. Or whenever we'd go out shopping, I would buy massive bulks of food and I would hide it in my room. I try and hide it from them, be like, oh, I'm going to eat it later. And I would literally sit there and eat the entire thing right then and there, and then try and have to hide the rubbish and all that stuff. I can remember like not wanting to invite my friends into my room when we'd have like pre-drinks or something like that, because I would have just stuff absolutely everywhere. Or like if I binged or something, all the wrappers would be like in my bin and I just wouldn't want them to see it. So they probably thought I was really weird because I never invited them into my room. But yeah, it definitely did affect it looking back, which is, it's sad to think, but then it's a journey, and I guess it's gotten me to this point.
100%. Like, speaking of the fact that it's a journey, because you don't just like wake up one day and have a really good relationship with food and know how to eat in a way that's going to fuel your body but also satisfy your mind and everything. So I'm really interested to hear, like, what are the first couple of steps that you took, like once you found Becca and sort of started educating yourself about what was happening and making those decisions to be like, right, we're gonna stop these behaviors and try and rewrite these habits. What were the first things that you did to like start your journey?
So I think the first one is talk to people about it, because I think the guilt and shame that you hide inside of you is because you feel so alone in it. And I think once you start talking to other people, especially people that have maybe gone through something similar, like it opens your eyes up and you realize you're not alone and you shouldn't hold all this guilt, and that it's not necessarily like, it is a disorder for a reason. It is not overeating. It is a compulsion that you feel inside of you that you just have to do it, and it's not necessarily you that's controlling it. And I think as soon as you kind of talk to people and realize that, it just gives you so much mental clarity and it helps so much. The other thing I would say is that as hard as it is, try and eat during the day as well, because that was a huge fear of mine. I can remember like not wanting to eat till like 11, or even when I was like recovering, not wanting to eat till like 11 or 12, because I'd be like, no, I'm gonna need my calories for like the evening. And like, you really, like, if you start eating sooner, your metabolism really does fire up. And yeah, and I would say as well, like, while social media can be harming in some ways, if you follow the correct people like yourself,
Thank you.
like, they can just be such an inspiration to you, and they just give you so much free like education stuff. And I think that is one of the most important things as well, is just educating yourself on it and knowing that you're just not alone.
100%. I love those so much. Do you sort of remember the moment where you realized what you were doing wasn't just overeating, it was actually a binge? Like, because I know I got to a certain point where I'd never even heard the word binge before, unless it was describing, you know, you watching loads of TV programs or TV episodes back to back. Like, that was the only time I'd ever heard the word binge, when I realized, oh my God, what I was doing was actually a binge. It was like a light bulb moment. Do you remember when you first were able to sort of put that label to what you were doing and have that like eureka moment of, I'm not crazy?
Do you know what? I don't think I do. And it's weird because I've been asked that question before, but I can't actually pinpoint the exact moment that I was like, oh, this is actually like a proper binge. Like, I can always remember myself thinking, wait, this is a serious amount of food I'm eating in a very small succession. But I never had, I feel like maybe I've just blocked it out of my memory. I never really, I don't think I've ever had that moment of like, oh my God, this is a binge. I think potentially because I study psychology at uni, we talked about kind of eating habits and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if maybe it was during that it kind of slowly incremented on me, and I was like, oh, actually maybe this is what I'm doing. But I don't actually remember a time that I was like, oh shit, this is actually what I'm doing, which is kind of strange in a way.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like a weird thing to come to terms with. And I, like, for me personally, I definitely felt alone and thought I was the only one doing this at some points. But you mentioned you turned to Becca for support. Did you find it difficult opening up to people? Because like, I know for me, for the first time I was going to like share with my partner, this is what I think I'm experiencing. The first time I shared with Instagram, I think this is what I'm going through, guys. It was very nerve-wracking. So did you find it difficult initially to open up to Becca, or to open up to the people in your lives to be like, I'm suffering with this thing, this is what it's like on a daily basis, and this is the name I think I've got for it?
Yeah, so I think Becca, luckily enough, so we met each other through a different coach anyway, and I knew that she was suffering, or she had suffered with, you know, disordered eating and stuff like that in the past. And I think we became friends before I even reached out to her, so she kind of knew a bit more anyway. Like, from the get-go, our friendship had been built on the fact that we were just completely honest about each other, to do with our eating habits and all that stuff. So I think to her it was quite normal and natural to kind of turn to her for proper help. But I think when I'd first met her, I was almost deceiving myself into thinking, no, I've got this sorted, I don't need any more help, like I've got this down. And yet it wasn't until that rock bottom moment that I was like, actually no, I really do need some help. So I don't think it was necessarily hard to open up to her, because I knew that she'd be supportive, and she's one of my best friends anyway. But I can definitely remember other people it was hard to, because a few people that I told, they didn't get it, and they'd be like, oh, you just need to eat a bit less and all this stuff, and it's like, it's really not that. So I think a few people that I'd opened up to and had given that response, it made it more worrying trying to open up to more people about it. But I think like my sister was 100% supportive, my parents were really supportive as well, and they kind of understood it, and kind of researched it as well, which was really nice, so you didn't feel alone in it. But I think even now, like, I'm a bit scared to tell some people, like people within the fitness community, it doesn't bother me at all because I feel like they get it more. But people that are more every day to day, I don't necessarily disclose it as much, because I'm still a bit worried about their response, because I still feel like there's that stigma around.
How did that make you feel when you sort of told that handful of people and they turn around and be like, you need to have more discipline, you need to have more motivation, you need to just eat less? Like, how did that make you feel in the moment?
So soul crushing, because like that, like deep down it's just you, it's not you. And like you work so hard to not feel guilty, and to say that this is a disorder, I'm trying to work on myself so hard to try and fix this, and then for someone to just come along, just go, oh, you just need to do X, Y, and Z, and you're just screaming because you're just like, that's really not it. And it's so frustrating that they don't get it. But at the same time, I just kind of have to let it wash over you.
Yeah.
And I think that's all you can do. If people out there that are listening kind of have the same thing happen to them, just know that it's okay that they don't get it, but don't let it get to you, because it's not worth it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I think it is also like really difficult. You've spent years and years and years harboring this shame of all these like behaviors, whether it's, hiding stuff in the bin or hiding stuff in your room, or like the secret eating. Like, everything is done under covers and no one knows any different unless you get caught in the act, really, or someone sees. So it's even more soul crushing to actually open yourself up like that and be like, this is all the shame I've been dealing with. To not have that support is just horrendous. But I'm so happy that you just like, you know what, they don't matter, because you've got the core people that will support you that you need. So I'm really happy that you've let them go. Can you tell us like a little bit about sort of your relationship with food now, like compared to how it was back then? What does typical triggering events like birthdays, Christmases, or like New Year's, like what do they look for you now?
They're so much more chilled, so much more chilled. I don't get anxious coming up to them, and I don't worry about the fact that, oh, I may eat a little bit more. I'm not scared of chocolate around Christmas or birthdays. I'm not scared that I'm going to have cake in the house, because there's a time where if there was cake or any sweet treat in the house, I'd be like, it can't be in here, it can't be around me, because I will just eat it all. And like with Easter as well, I can remember one Easter, I literally said to people that I hated chocolate, that I didn't like chocolate anymore, and I convinced myself that I didn't like chocolate, because I was like, I can't have it in the house because I will eat it all. Whereas like now I have a drawer in my room and it's stacked full of chocolate, and I don't feel the urge to go to it. And most days I don't have chocolate, but that's from a choice, because I know that I can have it if I want it. And it's so different. It's just so much more relaxing, and knowing that you can have whatever you want, it's just in moderation. And yeah, it just feels so liberating.
No, I love that so much. Oh, it makes me so happy just to like hear how just carefree and just positive you are. Like, to be able to have a snack drawer that's so massive for anyone that's suffered with any type of disordered eating ever. Something like that honestly feels unreachable for so many people. I absolutely thought, I'm never going to be able to keep an Easter egg in the house. I'm never going to be able to keep excess chocolate in the house, or the chocolate's never going to last me like a week. It's going to be gone within 24 hours, because that was the reality, and that's going to be the reality of like so many people. I'm just so happy to hear like how far you've come. But I also know that you are a fellow gym bunny, so
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about just like how your relationship with exercise has drastically changed, obviously, compared to what you used to do, but your approach to fitness, your approach to exercise, like how has that evolved for the better as well?
So as I said, I started off rowing when I was really young, and that was kind of a very big part of my life. But I think this is such a big thing, and I have no idea why I did it. So the first kind of over exercising, or I guess bad relationship with sport that I had, was that, again, when I was 17 and I got a bit depressed and I was putting on my weight, I thought, you know what, to lose some weight, I'm gonna just run a half marathon. Had never run one before, and I was like, you know what, I can do that, because it will get me training like 3-4 times a week, and it'll get the miles up, and running's a great way to lose weight. So I convinced myself to sign up to a half marathon, and bless my dad for running it with me. And I was like, that's such a great way to lose weight. And I can remember every single run I ever did, I would cry at the end, because it was just like punishment and I did not feel good doing it. But yeah, that was my main one that I was like, oh, this is really not good. But yeah, but then go to like now, and I don't actually know really how I got into the gym. I guess I think it was just that thing of, I just want to get a bit more healthy, I want to lose weight, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And like, it's completely different now. Like, I go to the gym because it's more of like a therapy for me. I feel so good mentally when I do it, and I love to lift heavy weights because it just makes me feel empowered. And I don't go now putting my watch on and checking how many calories I've like done in that session so I can eat them later. And I think once you get to that really good space with it, it's just, yeah, it's so good, and it just helps you so much mentally. And also running, I ran another half marathon like a year ago, and I did not do it for weight loss. I did it because I wanted to, and it's just changed so much. And I think a lot of that is also within like my body confidence that I've improved on as well, because I think that had a massive impact, and kind of learning to love my body as well, which is a whole other journey. But I think that helps it so much, because you learn to do it for you and not because you want to look a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Your poor dad. I cannot believe you did that to your dad.
Yeah, I know. Well, he used to run anyway, so like he was fine with it. I just felt sorry for him that after every session for a good like 6 months, I would cry my eyes out afterwards, and he'd start to get annoyed at me because I'd be like, I don't know why I'm crying.
Oh my God. Exercise is amazing, but please, guys, always use it for the right reasons and not to punish yourself. If you don't enjoy running, maybe take up cycling or something, like anything else.
That's such a good point to make. Like, do exercise because you enjoy it. Don't do it because you're trying to punish yourself, or you feel that's what you've got to do. If you don't want to go to the gym, don't go to the gym. If you like to go for a walk, just go for walks.
Yeah, 100%. All exercise is valid. It's just actually finding out. So to be exactly like you said, like, what is your therapy? Because that's exactly what the gym is for me now. It's my time. It's the equivalent for me of like having a nice bath or like reading a good book. And it is empowering. I feel like the gym just has like a gravitational pull anyway. But lifting weights, it is essentially therapy. But you mentioned sort of body positivity and like your body image. How has that evolved? Obviously, finding peace with your body is a completely different journey to finding food freedom, but they often also go hand in hand. A lot of the times when you are pairing your relationship with food, finding like a good regime with exercise actually makes you feel good. You start looking in the mirror and thinking, damn, she's looking good, even if you're not making any physical changes. So how has that evolved for you as well?
So I would put that down to the reason why I think my relationship with food and the gym changed completely. And I think that is a massive starting point as well, is that if you can repair your relationship with yourself and learn to love yourself, everything else will fall into place. Because I think the mindset is the biggest thing. Once you stop punishing yourself, everything will just start snowballing. I used to hate the way I looked. I would always be negative to myself. I would never look in mirrors. Yeah, so negative. I wouldn't wear certain pieces of clothing, like bodycon dresses wouldn't even cross my mind. I'd be like, no, I cannot wear that. And I think just slowly being kinder to yourself, and as cliche as it sounds and as terrible as it sounds, just look in the mirror and just say one nice thing about yourself each day. and slowly but surely you will learn to love yourself. And your body is such an amazing thing, and it does so many things to keep you alive. And I think there was a moment in my life as well that I had with some trauma with some family, that things happened, and it kind of did just make me realize that actually your body is so amazing and it looks after you in so many ways, so I shouldn't be negative towards it. And I just know that it changed my mindset so much, and I'm so thankful for that, because my outlook on life now is just so much more positive. And like, I am the same weight now as I was a few years ago when I was in such a negative mindset. And just looking at my body now, I can just, even though it's not changed physically, my outlook on it is so different, and it's so much more positive, and I don't hate myself. And that's such a strong motivational tool for anyone that wants to start a journey, because that is the starting point for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's going to be so many people just listening to you say that and think, if there's any reason to take the leap, that's going to be it. And just saying like one nice thing about yourself every single day, even if you got to like fake it till you make it. That's what half of us are out here doing anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fake the positivity and gratitude and everything until you actually feel it, because you know any starting point is a good starting point.
Exactly.
But I did just want to bring up your podcast. Obviously, if people haven't listened to the episode I have with Becca, that is who you are sort of co-host with. So I just wanted to, firstly, can you introduce your podcast? But secondly, just share a little bit of your motivations behind wanting to create it.
Yep. So the podcast is called Food Freedom with Becca. It is on Spotify and on YouTube as well. And I host it with my wonderful friend called Becca, who I love dearly. And we started the podcast mainly because we wanted to try and give education out, because we both know that education is the strongest tool to help people. And we wanted to help as many people as we could that had been in our situation, because we know how lonely it can be. And not everyone can afford coaching, especially with, you know, the current situation going on. And we basically thought what would be a great way to give out free information and just free motivation, free support. And so we just decided to do a podcast. And I love doing it because it just, even if it helps one person out there, that is all that, you know, we care about. We just want to help so many people as we can, and just help people not have to go through the things that we went through, because we know how terrible and nasty it can be. So that was our main motivation for doing that. But yeah,
An amazing podcast that I love listening to. If you like this podcast, you're going to love their podcast. And it's just, for me personally, it's just like a dose of positivity and realness that I love. But yeah, obviously I will be linking like everything in the show notes for everyone to go over and follow and subscribe and all those good things. But just to sort of end on, I haven't heard of many people that haven't had a period in their life where they haven't feared Pancake Day. So I would just love if you could just give our listeners maybe a bit of advice or anything like that on just how to have an enjoyable pancake day, how to enjoy that pancake guilt-free without any sort of compensation needed.
So I'm going to refer to one of my favorite anecdotes that I say to a lot of people that are in this situation. So if you ate terrible each day, not nutritious foods, and then on one day you had a salad, that wouldn't immediately means that you've lost weight just because you've had a salad that one day. Just like if you have eaten the salad every single day and then you have those pancakes in that one day, that does not mean you will have gained weight for that week at all. Having one day out of your entire week is not going to make a huge amount of difference. And if you enjoy it and you spend time with your family or loved ones and you are creating memories, and you know, you flip it and it goes on the side and you have a laugh, that is worth so much more than you missing out on it and feeling guilty for it. And that is the one thing that I would give to everyone out there. Just make them, because it's memories, it's positivity, it is happy hormones, and it's pancakes. Everybody loves pancakes.
100%. And just make sure you have the pancakes that you want as well. Like for me personally, I like covered in chocolate.
Yes.
And anything less, I'm not interested. But for years, I would try and have like protein pancakes, which some people absolutely love, but was not ticking the box that I needed it to tick. Sometimes I try and have like fruit on it or other things, when all I wanted was chocolate pancake. And all you do by avoiding what you want is just making yourself feel crap. and filling yourself with regret. And then oftentimes I get to the weekend and just binge on pancakes anyway.
Yeah. And that's what I would do as well. If you don't have it in the moment, you then crave it anyway, and you're most likely to end up having it later on during the week or the week afterwards. So it's like, just skip the middle bit, have it that day, and then you'll be satisfied.
100%. So just to end, obviously we've mentioned like where you can find your podcast. So just remind the listeners, please, if they are searching for you, what are you called and where can we find you?
So the podcast is called Food Freedom with Becca. So is the Instagram page if you want to check that out as well. And my Instagram handle is abs.mfitness.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on Rewrite the Rules and share your journey and your story with everyone. There's going to be so many people that have very similar or identical journeys to you, and seeing you at such a positive place where you are absolutely glowing 24/7 is gonna provide like a lot of faith and hope for a lot of people really, really struggling right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to be on here after listening to you for so long as well. I love the podcast. It has helped me through so many times as well.
Thank you so much. It's going to be so weird for you to like listen back to yourself, and when you see it come up on Monday morning, it's going to be your name this time.
That's so weird to think.
But no, I really appreciate you coming on and just sharing your journey with us. And I've loved speaking to you. This episode is just going to be so valuable. So just thank you from the three of us, even though there's only one of us here right now. As always, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If there is ever a topic you want us to cover or a guest that you want to see, feel free to drop us a message over at Rewrite the Rules Pod on Instagram. But until next time, we will see you guys later. Bye, guys.
Bye.